Funding for Schaffrillas is provided by
SQUARESPACE, the sponsor of today's video. Hey gang, so in addition to my best movies and games of 2023 rankings, I figured, hey, why don't we add TV shows to the mix this year? I usually don't talk about them because usually I don't watch too many in the same year they came out, but this year I watched quite a few and you guys have asked me my opinions on quite a few of them. So I thought it might be fun to do this somewhat looser scripted ranking than a lot of my other ones. Just kinda casually going through each show season that came out this year that I watched from worst to best, and then semi-briefly saying what's what about them. So with that said, starting from the bottom, the absolute worst season of television that came out in 2023 that I watched, keyword is that I watched, there's probably worse out there, but this is the worst one I saw. We have The Mandalorian Season 3. I'm dead serious, this is the worst TV I've seen all year. I mean, it's probably because I didn't watch the Marvel shows. And don't jump on me, I heard Loki was good, I just don't care. I believe you guys when you say it's a good season. You can enjoy it without me. Have fun. Anyway, Mando Season 3. I didn't make a review on it because I felt like its problems were obvious and everyone was talking about them. But just to recap, this is a horribly messy and disjointed season with no engaging hook. Mando barely has anything to work with, Grogu shouldn't even be here, and it's blatantly obvious that he was just brought back because of merchandise appeal. Bo-Katan is essentially the main character of the season, and she's so boring. Like, I liked her in Clone Wars, but this show sucked all of her charisma and personality out. Gus Fring doesn't even show up till the second to last episode, and they foil his evil plan before it's even explained what his evil plan was. And then there's the Jack Black and Lizzo episode, which is far and away the worst of the entire series, and not just because of how distracting Jack Black and Lizzo being here is. You got the bullshit technicality of Mando handing over the Darksaber with zero fanfare, even though the season 2 finale implied this would be a major source of conflict. Nope, not at all. Great. And then you got a bunch of battle droids. Big day for battle droid fans, I guess. I mean, I love battle droids, but they were so out of place here. And then Christopher Lloyd is over there rambling about Count Dooku. What? It is insane how much a show about a Boba Fett guy and a tiny Yoda going on adventures together is now so heavily reliant on Clone Wars. Like, how did these things get so intertwined? It's ridiculous. This season was the real final nail in the coffin for any Star Wars show that isn't Andor. Just abysmal, and you can watch a million video essays going into more detail on it. I'd recommend this one by Friendly Space Ninja. It's pretty good. So that was the worst TV show season of 2023 I watched. A disappointing season 3 after 2 pretty good seasons. Speaking of a disappointing season 3 after 2 pretty good seasons, Ted Lasso season 3 is next. Honestly, I kinda dislike these two season 3s equally, but I gave Ted Lasso the edge because at least it has a coherent story structure. Like, scenes aren't in the wrong order, like how Gus Fring explains his evil plan after it was foiled. Ted Lasso season 3 is still bad though. Its episodes are just agonizingly long. Like, they go up to 78 minutes now when seasons 1 and 2 were closer to 30 minutes. And it's for no good reason. These episodes just meander. Ted doesn't have anything interesting to do except mope about his ex-wife's new boyfriend. And it's so obviously a reflection of Jason Sudeikis going through a divorce. It's like that Diary of a Wimpy Kid joke where the guy uses the Wacky Dog comic to vent about his personal life. It's like, bro, go to therapy or something. Don't vent about it on this TV show. The subplot about the gay guy feels like an after-school special. Keely's subplot is completely superfluous and doesn't connect to anything else going on at all. The Zava shit goes nowhere. That sniveling little shitlit Nate is written so inconsistently compared to how much of an asshole he was last season. And I hated the finale so much. Like, it was so cliche and dishonest and inauthentic, and I guess the perfect capper to a meandering, aimless, bullshit season. But I really like Roy Kent. He's my favorite character. You know, at times I kind of wish the show was just about him. Anyway, yeah, this season really soured me on this entire series. Even though I pretty much enjoyed the first 2 seasons, it just didn't feel worth it to get through this slog of a season. And now whenever I see the ridiculously excessive amount of Ted Lasso merchandise at Barnes & Noble, I'm just like, why? Like, I don't actually know a single person in real life who watches this show. It cannot be this popular to warrant all this merchandise. Anyway, yeah, bad bad season, moving on. Next is Ahsoka. Pretty mid, not gonna lie, but I'm not gonna dedicate any more thought to it because I already talked about it in its own video. Next is Clone High Season 2, and I have very mixed feelings about this one. I did not think it was as good as the first season. I think the new characters are just kinda too nice to fit into this cynical, edgy world. With the exception of Topher, but then the show doesn't use him very often, so whatever. There's just way too many characters, and all of the new characters combined don't make up for what we lost with Gandhi. He was just so much more charming and funny than Confucius and Harriet Tubman. Cleo and Frida's relationship was the most rushed and forced thing I've ever seen. And half the time it doesn't even feel like Abe needs to be here. That's how irrelevant he ends up feeling. I will say the one episode that I really enjoyed and thought, okay, that was worth this whole reboot existing just for this addition to the Clone High universe, was that Mr. Butlertron backstory episode. I thought it was very funny and kinda sweet, and yeah, I just really liked that one. The rest of the episodes ranged from okay-ish to kinda bad, I don't know. I feel like maybe this could be worthwhile if they find their footing as it goes on, so I think I'll give the next season a try. For now, it's kinda meh. Now we got My Happy Marriage. It's an anime about a girl who is the most boring block of wood I've ever seen, getting married to a guy she has no chemistry with, in a fantasy universe where the fantasy elements go unexplained for a majority of the show. But the animation was very good. I don't know, it was kind of a cozy watch even if I wasn't engaging with a lot of the elements in it. Then we got Oshi No Ko Season 1. And I have to say, this one kind of disappointed me. I liked it fine, but I feel like it peaked with a quite frankly kind of insane episode 1. And then after that, it just became a pretty standard story about the idol industry. I don't know, I feel like I've just seen characters like this a million times, and I gradually lost interest in the main plot as the series went on. And I really hate to say that because this is based on a manga by Aka Akasaka, writer of Kaguya Love is War, one of my top 10 favorite shows of all time. But I don't know, this one just isn't clicking with me nearly as much. Oh, and there's a rather questionable age gap in this, if you think about it, and it makes you wonder why that element needed to be part of the story at all. Like, why couldn't this just be a regular smart guy and not... Well, I don't really want to spoil it, but there's a major episode of the plot in the first episode that really does not factor into the rest of the show much at all. But the OP and ED for this show go hard, I'll say that. I also watched the Afterparty Season 2, so this is a murder mystery series made by Chris Miller of Lord and Miller fame. And the gimmick is that every episode is told from a different character's point of view, and that point of view is represented by a movie genre. So in this season, one character's point of view is a detective story, one is a Jane Austen adaptation, one is a Wes Anderson film. It's a very cute idea, but something about this season didn't grab me as much as the first. Like, I think the characters are just less interesting, and the mystery kinda fizzles out as it goes along. Plus, there's a pointless episode about Tiffany Haddish's past that doesn't connect to anything going on in the present storyline. It just kind of felt whatever by the end. Like, I really liked the Jane Austen and Wes Anderson episodes, but the storyline in the first season was a lot more memorable for me. Also, Ken Jeong is trying to play a stern father in this, except he literally cannot help himself from being a goofball and trying to be funny. His character is super inconsistently written, and it's a bit annoying. Next up is My Adventures with Superman Season 1. And my thoughts on this show pretty much boiled down to, I really like Lois, Clark, and Jimmy interacting with each other. The rest of the show is fine. Like, I really don't find the ongoing story interesting. I don't know why they bothered making Lois's dad a twist, because I saw it coming from a mile away, even without familiarity with the comics. In general, almost everything feels kinda basic. But damn, is that chemistry between Lois and Clark sweet. It's so worth watching this show just for their relationship. My girlfriend pointed out that if you replace the flawed relationship drama in Invincible Season 1 with Lois and Clark's relationship, then you would pretty much have a perfect superhero show. And yeah, I definitely think so. I think My Adventures with Superman is cute, and I'm definitely interested in tuning in for more. Among Us. Next up is Hell's Paradise. This is that anime based on the manga my girlfriend loves. So I read the entire manga, and I also really love it. However, it really pains me to admit that I think the anime is significantly less good than the manga. Like, I don't think it would leave a good first impression of this story for me. The animation just isn't all that great, and doesn't match the very visceral and intense look of the manga. I feel like they cut a lot of Yuzuriha x Sagiri moments, which is kinda upsetting, and I don't know, it generally just feels a bit off to me, and not as enticing as the manga made this island seem. But it's a pretty solid shonen anime with great characters, and I still recommend checking it out. My favorite is Senta, cause he's just a silly guy. He's just a nerd with glasses who's so out of his elements, but I love him dearly.
Hey everyone, Jess here, the aforementioned girlfriend. I just want to let everybody know that Gabimaru is a wife guy, and that's epic. I would also love to talk about my favorite character, Gabimaru's wife, and her hidden complexity, but that's a bit of a spoiler, so maybe I'll make my own video essay about that one day, who knows? In conclusion, you should read the manga! Thank you for your time, and I will see you all in February for my analysis of Romeo and Juliet, Sealed with a Kiss 2006, directed by Phil Niblink, the greatest piece of media of all time. Okay, bye!
Alright, next up we got The Bad Batch Season 2. Actually kinda good. A notable improvement over Season 1. It kinda starts out as more of the same, and the Bad Batch are still the least interesting characters in The Bad Batch. I think this show would have been better if it was an anthology series like Clone Wars that focuses on different clones dealing with the era of the Empire. The Bad Batch could still have episodes in it, but like, the Crosshair focused episodes are so much better. There's a Senate focused arc that's really good and didn't need the Bad Batch in it. You could have more stuff with Rex and Echo. Like, it's really funny that they didn't know what to do with Echo, so they just removed him from the show for a little bit. But yeah, even the Bad Batch stuff is better. I liked Tech and Omega's heart-to-heart. I like this little island they think about settling down on. And yeah, the last 3 episodes or so are really well done and surprising. I got super invested. Hell, the entire second half of the season was solid. There were definitely more episodes I liked this season than found uninteresting. So yeah, not bad. The best Star Wars thing to come out this year, honestly. Okay, Pokemon Concierge. This was just 4 episodes, barely a TV season, more like a couple of shorts. But it was cute and nice, and the animation was very good. I love the material these Pokemon are made of, and that's pretty much it. They didn't add Lotad, who is the best Pokemon ever though, so 0 out of 10. Next is I'm in Love with the Villainess. This is a cute, funny isekai where a girl gets sucked into a dating sim, and she doesn't want to date the princes you're supposed to. She's in love with the Villainess. Hey, that's the name of the show. Pretty good. It's a fun concept, and the developing bond between the 2 girls gets really sweet. Apparently people were mad at this show because they actually verbally acknowledged that the main girl is gay. Like, apparently they didn't realize that the main protagonist of I'm in Love with the Villainess was gay for being in love with the Villainess until the show spelled it out for them. Okay. But yeah, it's a fun time. Though I would honestly recommend watching it subbed, because after a while, the main girl's delivery in the dub really got on my nerves. She delivers every other line like she's the Kaguya dub narrator, and just puts on all these ridiculous voices. And I feel like she really needed to rein that in, because it got pretty annoying. Everyone else in the dub is good though, but yeah, maybe check out the sub, I don't know. Anyway, next is Spy Family Season 2. I don't really have much to say about it other than it's still good. I think at this point it's pretty clear that the show has very little interest in progressing the story, and it's very comfortable with just being a slice of life show with spy elements sprinkled on top. I feel like a lot of people hate that about it because they didn't get what they were advertised at the beginning, that being something that's action-packed and plot-driven. But the joke's on you guys. I like when Anya does silly things. Anya is epic. And I like how Yor has finally been given things to do on this arc with Daisy Cruiser. I was waiting so long for her to straight up kill people more. Like, it feels like the show is really hesitant to show that because, oh, she's a caring mom. We want you to like her. We can't show her committing murder, cowards. But then they finally did some of that shit. Oh my god, took you long enough, but it's awesome. Yeah, pretty good, and I still like tuning in every week to see epic Anya moments. Okay, before we continue, I better talk to you about an epic website builder. Chi, Anya wants to build a cool website. Anya, you fucking stupid child. You can't build a website, you don't know how. I mean, you would need something so simple and intuitive to use in order to do so. Heh, don't worry, Chi, Anya's got it with Squarespace. Squarespace is an amazing online website builder that enables you to create beautiful websites for your business or personal hobby. Create your own online store to sell your products. Whether they be physical, digital, or service products, you better believe Squarespace has the tools you need to start selling online. Hop on in with one of their professional website templates with designs for every category and use case. Then make it your own by customizing the design, updating content, and adding whichever features you need. Any Squarespace template can do anything you want, allowing your idea, brand, or business to stand out. And on any device, too. You can even host video content using Squarespace, organizing your video library, showing off your content on beautiful video pages, and selling access to exclusive videos with member areas. The possibilities are near limitless. Check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Schaffrillas to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Okay, now we've reached the top 8. And these are the shows that are great and really left an impression on me this year. Number 8 is The Curse with Nathan Fielder and Emma Stone. I'm a big Nathan Fielder fan. Nathan For You is one of the best shows I've ever seen. The Rehearsal is also pretty good, and I think this is on a similar level to The Rehearsal for me. It's incredibly uncomfortable and kind of a slow burn, but it does a great job of anchoring you in the lives of this couple and watching their bond slowly erode over time. I think it's so cool that Emma Stone, having already won her Oscar a few years back, is now content enough with her career to do increasingly weird shit like this and Poor Things, which we'll see on my favorite movies list pretty soon. But yeah, I just love the fact that an actress of her caliber is doing this extensive Nathan Fielder TV show. Like, it's awesome how committed she is to this. There's a lot of that trademark Fielder cringe comedy. Like, there's a scene, ironically, at a comedy workshop that takes the cake for the most uncomfortable television scene all year for me. I think the show works best when these two are together, though. And personally, I'm not a huge fan of the Benny Sadfeet character. Plus, sometimes it can feel a little aimless and drawn out. But for the most part, pretty damn great. I think the most shocking thing about this show is finding out that Nathan Fielder can act. Like, when his character gets mad, it's damn convincing. He's not Emma Stone good, obviously, but it's pretty insane to watch someone who's usually so monotone just lose his shit. Like, it's kind of terrifying based on what I expect from him. So yeah, very much worth watching if you're a Fielder head. If not, maybe watch Nathan For You first, I don't know. So number 7 is Barry Season 4. If I'm being honest though, I think this was the weakest season of Barry, which is saying something because it's still like some of the best TV I've seen all year. But personally, I think seasons 1 and 2 are my favorites since they have the best balance of comedy and drama, with Barry going to the acting class and trying to juggle that with being a hitman. This season, by contrast, is some of the bleakest shit I've seen all year. The drama is excellent, don't get me wrong, but it's so overwhelming that a lot of the comedic moments don't quite hit the same anymore. And the conclusion does feel kinda rushed. Like, I almost got the sense that Bill Hader just wanted to get the show over with so he could move on to other things. But it's not like bad or disappointing, just not the strongest season, you know? I'm still kinda scratching my head how we landed on a confrontation between Fuchs and NoHo Hank in the finale. But for the most part, the dramatic writing is still top notch as this season descends to darker and darker places. Everyone absolutely gives their A games with the performances, especially Anthony Carrigan, Henry Winkler, and Sarah Goldberg. You absolutely feel their pain. This entire season is just these formerly lovable, kooky characters in fucking agony 24/7. And it made for an intense, solid conclusion to what is easily one of the best shows on television in the past few years. The last scene in particular really nails the balance between some of the most uncomfortable shit I've ever seen and something that in execution is kinda funny. It's hard to really ask for a better final scene to the show than this. Alright, my number 6 favorite season of television of 2023 is The Bear Season 2. So this show isn't about a bear, what a fucking ripoff. But instead it's about this depressed, workaholic chef who tries to manage his dead brother's sandwich shop. And I thought that plotline, which took up season 1, was pretty good. But now in season 2, they're turning it into a fancy restaurant. And it's somehow even more stressful than the already insanely stressful season 1. Like, if I had to pick a show that just embodied anxiety, it would be this one. And yeah, it's just this really fascinating and entertaining series about this guy who's clearly making himself miserable with what he's doing, even though he can't just stop. And Jeremy Allen White does a really great job conveying that through his performance. I also really like Ayo Adebari. She was everywhere this year. In this, Bottoms, Ninja Turtles, Theater Camp, my Letterboxd feed. She's just a really entertaining performer, and I love her character in this show. I also love Richie, played by Skeen from Andor. Like, that's all I see when I look at this guy. He is fucking Skeen. One of my favorite episodes of the show is just focused on him, where he's forced to work at this fancy restaurant, and he hates it there, and everybody hates him. But then he makes the best of his situation and starts giving a shit, and everyone there comes around on him. And that's like the ideal adult wish fulfillment right there, you know? Like, I feel like everyone wants to turn around a shitty job they have to do and make it enjoyable and something you'll actually get something out of. So this episode really endeared me to his character a lot more. I also really love the part where he starts singing Taylor Swift because he's listening to it more to connect with his daughter. Like, that's really sweet and a perfect reflection of his brighter mood. I also love the flashback episode with the family, which includes Bob Odenkirk and John Mulaney. Just what a delight that was until it turns into a living nightmare. Good stuff. And the season 2 finale was another one of my favorites of the whole show. Like, that scene with Carmi in the fridge, just woof. please check out The Bear. And even if you don't like season 1 that much, I think season 2 is significantly better, so stick with it until then. Now for my number 5 favorite season of television of 2023, Fionna and Cake. I was not expecting this to be this good. Like, I was excited when it was announced because I love Simon and I love Fionna and Cake. But wow, this is some of the best Adventure Time content I've ever seen. I loved the show growing up, but I haven't seen every episode. I think I fell off around season 7, and then I just kind of tuned in for the finale, and that was it. And this is a perfect coda to that, giving us far more insight on Simon and Betty's relationship and how tragic it is given where they ended up. It's also one of the best multiverse stories currently out there, following up on dark, loose threads from the original series that I never thought would get followed up on, while also opening up completely new realms of possibility, like the Winter King, voiced by Brian David Gilbert? Hello? That's insane, and I somehow didn't notice it until I saw his name in the credits. But yeah, this is how you do a multiverse story, expanding the original property as a whole, rather than relying on nostalgia and stuff the audience has already seen. This miniseries made me realize that the universe of Adventure Time is just so evergreen, where you can do anything, tell any story without it having to be connected to the quote-unquote main plot and characters. As a result, I kinda hope we keep getting new Adventure Time stories forever, because if they're on this level of quality and imagination, then why the hell not? I feel like we've only scratched the surface of this universe and what compelling stories it can tell. The villain is great, I really love the Marshall Lee and Gumball side plot, and it was cool seeing Prismo again, because he's my favorite character. I am very much a Prismo stan. Anyway, you really owe it to yourself to check this out if you love Adventure Time. It's legitimately fantastic. Number 4, baby, we got Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. Not what anyone expected, but I think that's a great thing. Because the more I thought about what the show was advertised as, the more I realized, wait, so we're just gonna watch the same cast do the same story again? Obviously with more time to tell the full story of the comic, and being animated is always a plus. But yeah, it just kinda seemed like a typical reboot, even though the hype was still there, of course. And then it takes a hard left turn at the end of the first episode and becomes a completely new story that's able to flesh out characters like the Evil X's, who barely got any screen time originally, and pair characters together that you wouldn't expect. It enriches the Scott Pilgrim universe so much and shows just how strong all these side characters are, since they can hold their own even without Scott around. More than anything, it just serves as the perfect antidote to our modern reboot and remake culture, forcing the audience to consider, hey, do you really want to see the same story again? Or do you want to see something brand new that makes you appreciate that original story even more? Imagine if a Disney live-action remake, for instance, took a hard left turn and completely changed its plot. Like, seriously, imagine that, because I can't. This was such a bold decision that most studios making remakes would never do, because it's not as profitable or whatever. But man, does it add something to Scott Pilgrim and the world as a whole. Some of my favorite bits were the Gideon and Matthew Patel fight. Hell, Matthew Patel in general, he was so much improved from the original story. Young Neil was also so much funnier than he's ever been, and one of the standouts of the show. I like the stuff with Ramona and Roxy. Pretty much everything Wallace did was incredible. I wasn't very impressed with Kieran Culkin's voice acting when I heard it in the trailers, and I still think all those takes sounded kinda weak, but in the show he was a lot better, so I apologize. He initially sounded more uncomfortable in the recording booth than dry and disinterested, but as the episodes went on, I stopped noticing that issue. He did a great job. I kinda wish the twins got something to do, because they didn't in the movie, and they still didn't in this, but oh well. I like the Gideon and Julie stuff, the last 2 episodes were great, and yeah, I could ramble about this more, but I'll leave you with, it's fantastic, watch the movie first, and then check this out. Man, I gotta read the graphic novel sometime. How have I not yet? And my number 3 favorite season of television of 2023 is the first 4 episodes of Invincible Season 2. I don't even need to see the last 4 episodes of the season. I can already tell this is peak. The more I think about Invincible, the more I realize that it's kinda one of my favorite shows ever now. Like, I just get so excited thinking about all the inventive superhero concepts, all the vivid gore, all the intense drama, and all the incredible characters. And one of the best aspects of these first few episodes is dealing with life after Omni-Man. Seeing Mark and Debbie try and cope with what happened. It's really hard-hitting and they take a lot of time to flesh it out. Like, Debbie was already one of my favorite characters in the first season, but now she's even better. It is so harrowing following her dealing with the aftermath of this. And the same goes for Mark as well. In addition, I think the robot stuff is pretty cute. His actions in season 1 made me a little uncomfy, but he's starting to win me over again. I like how there's a subplot about Bobby Hill trying to grapple with the fact that he died. The new villain they're setting up, who I think is going to take center stage in the season 2 finale from what I heard, is super interesting. Like, I like how he was just a nice guy who wanted to do good, and then this horrible science experiment gone wrong completely messed him up. Like, that is a good old-fashioned comic book villain origin story right there. Can't remember the last time I got one of those. The Mauler twins are great as always. I feel like nobody ever talks about them, but they're some of my favorite side characters in the whole show. They just have a great gimmick and rapport with each other. Episode 2 was the weakest of the 4, and yet it was still really good. Just a classic, good old-fashioned one-off pretty much. But episodes 1, 3, and 4 are all fantastic. Some of my favorites of the show. The Alan shit was wild, and I wasn't expecting Omni-Man to be back so soon. Married to Bug Kim Wexler, no less. It was an interesting and very unexpected development, and I love how thoroughly conflicted Mark is to see him again. It was just fantastic. Overall, an amazing start to what might just be one of my favorite seasons of television of the past few years. Provided they stick the landing. But since the comics exist and everyone's telling me the Angstrom-Levy stuff is gonna be peak, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're gonna stick the landing. So, my number 2 favorite TV show of 2023 is a last-minute addition because I heard it was really good. So I figured, sure, I'll squeeze it in. And I'm so glad I did, because Blue Eye Samurai is, no joke, one of the best new shows I've seen in years. Genuinely, I think this is the best new Netflix original since BoJack Horseman. The first season is a 10 out of 10 to me. I'm just in awe of how good it is. It's got some of the most visceral feeling action I've seen in a while. There are so many tense and shocking scenes that completely took me off guard. It's refreshingly adult, like very much so. They show penis and boobs and sex and stuff, in addition to all the bloody violence and swearing. And yet, all of it feels appropriate. It's never gratuitous. I'd say the first episode I watched and thought, yeah, that was pretty decent. You know, it wasn't anything crazy. Parts of it were a little cliche, but it's got a lot of potential. And then the more I watched, the more it started to subvert almost everything I expected based on that first episode. Like the dynamics of the characters and elements of the main character's backstory. A lot of it was stuff I didn't see coming, and often stuff I've never really seen before in anything. The main character is this woman who's half white, half Japanese, and in this period of Japan, that's frowned upon and she's seen as a demon. And she dedicates herself to this revenge quest to go find and kill the 4 white men secretly living in Japan, since one of them is her father. So basically, it's Mamma Mia, but with samurai murder. And it's awesome. I pretty much liked every character in this. Even the obvious comic relief one, who seemed a bit off-putting and out of place at first, but he quickly proved to be endearing and useful as the season went on. I like this very proactive princess and her bond with the caretaker who raised her. You know, obviously her story is a bit cliche. She's a princess who doesn't want to be one, you know, sure. But I think they made her a lot more proactive and interesting than most characters with this trope. Her fiance got embarrassed in a fight by the main character, so he tracks her down and pretty much helps her on her quest, because once it's done, he wants to fight her to the death. Like, that's a fun idea. There's obviously a lot to be said about the role that women have to play in this society, and it's all done very well. It doesn't feel ham-fisted or anything. I think the villain of this season and the dynamic he has with his right-hand man is pretty interesting. In general, I think the pacing is perfect, the story is consistently engaging, the characters are compelling, the action is nuts. Like I said, aside from that first episode being a little weaker than the others, the only real complaint I can think of is that sometimes they use licensed music and it just doesn't fit. But that's not really a common thing. It very rarely happens. But when it does, it's like, nah, please don't. I guess I'd also say I think the season peaks quality-wise with episode 6 out of 8. Not to say the last 2 episodes aren't amazing. They definitely are. But episode 6 is just on another level. So I watched it thinking, how the hell are they gonna top this one? And then they kinda didn't. Not a huge deal. The season just doesn't end with its strongest episode, but it still ends in a fantastic way. Yeah, not much else to say. I was just kinda floored by this show, and I'm begging you guys to check it out. I cannot have Netflix cancel this one before it finishes its story. Season 2 has already been greenlit, but to guarantee its success, this show needs all the eyes it can get watching it. So please do yourself a favor and check out Blue Eye Samurai. It's one of the best things I've seen all year, and it has to be seen to be believed. And now, my number one favorite TV show of 2023. I was gonna say in a landslide victory, but Blue Eye Samurai definitely gave it a last minute run for its money. But in the end, number one is Season 4 of Succession. One of my main motivating factors to make this video was to have an excuse to follow up my original Succession video and talk about this final season, which has solidified this as one of the single greatest TV shows of all time. There are at least 3 episodes and 10 scenes in this season that'll go down as all-time classics. It's actually kind of unreal how much I've continued to think about it over the past few months. It truly is unbelievable, and you really gotta get out now before I spoil it for you. Go watch Succession, you filthy animals. Anyway, it was an incredibly bold choice to finally bite the bullet and kill Logan 3 episodes in. But it paid off beautifully and gave the season so much more new life. The fact that one of the last things he said to them was that they're not serious people. Like, that's a fucking devastating insult. How do you come back from that? Connor's wedding had some of the most emotionally vulnerable acting I've ever seen in anything. Probably the series highlight for both Sarah Snook and Kieran Culkin. I could gush for days about all the little details in their performances. It was just such an unexpected and upsetting event to happen in the episode entitled Connor's Wedding. What a stroke of brilliance to have this happen here. From there, I thought Alexander Skarsgård's Madsen made for a memorable, slimy addition to the supporting cast. The election episode was tense as hell, and the perfect morality test for Kendall to ultimately fail at. And his funeral speech ultimately cemented how damaging the CEO position would be for his moral fiber. I also adore the finale, and not just because it mentions Lawrence Yee, who's my favorite minor character of the whole series. I'm gonna eat you all, proceeds to do nothing threatening for the entirety of the show. Oh, Lawrence, never change. I want to spit off about this guy and how he created Volter before Kendall ultimately guts it. Make it on the same level of quality as Andor, just inexplicably this amazing, harrowing story about a minor character no one has ever thought about in years. Except me and my friends, we are big Lawrence Yee stans. No, but the finale was great because they got all that typical schmaltzy bonding and saying goodbye stuff you'd expect from a finale out of the way in the middle of the episode. Kendall, Shiv, and Roman just bonding as siblings, them meeting up with Connor and seeing that video of their dad. It feels like a curtain call, and it leaves you with a lot of warm feelings about these characters you're about to say goodbye to. And then everything goes to f***ing shit in one of the most insane plot twists in the entire show. Everything is destroyed, you can just tell the relationship between these siblings is broken forever. And all because Shiv couldn't stand Kendall getting the glory. Man, you Roy siblings just can't get along even when the company's at stake. The scene where they all argue and Kendall declares himself the eldest boy has lived rent-free in my brain ever since it aired. It's so damn amazing, showcasing how the fate of the company all comes down to childish bickering between the siblings. Logan was right. They are not serious people. Not nearly as serious as motherfucking Tom Wamsgams. Woo! He was my favorite character from the start. Then Shiv briefly took over that spot, but Tom got it back right before the big finale. My problematic king getting the top spot just feels so right instead of it going to one of the siblings. He worked his way up and sucked up to the right people, and it all paid off. And it's pretty insane that even in death, Logan fucking wins. He got exactly what he wanted. For the deal with Madsen to go through, and for Tom, the de facto confidant he replaced all of his children with, to take over the role of CEO. Simply insane. But, would you believe me if I said I haven't even talked about my favorite scene in the entire season? Nay, my favorite scene in the entire show. Nay again, my favorite scene in any piece of media released in 2023. Sorry to all the banger movie and video game scenes that occurred in this great year for media, but in my opinion, nothing compares to the scene from Season 4, Episode 7, where Tom and Shiv argue on the balcony. This blowout is what every interaction across the entire show between these two has been building up to. When I watched the trailer for the season and heard the line, "You have hurt me more than you could possibly imagine," I knew I was in for some transcendent shit when we got to this scene. And that's exactly what this was. An absolutely devastating breakdown of all the awful shit these two terrible people have put each other through and the toll it's taken on both of them. It's brutal. When Shiv says, "You took away the last few months I could have had with my dad," Tom's response is the line delivery of the year, in my opinion.
It's not my fault that you didn't get his approval.
Like, that pause, that damn pause makes you think he's gonna ease up and sympathize a bit. Like, it's not my fault he acted this way towards you, followed by an apology or something. But no, you didn't get his approval. Tom is the child and successor he wanted, not you. And then he follows that up with, "I have given you endless approval, and it doesn't fill you up because you're broken." Fucking hell, man. What? It's a monstrous conversation on both of their ends, really. But Tom just destroyed her there. And then you contrast this scene with the ending, where Shiv willingly chooses that she'd rather be stuck in this loveless marriage that gives her close proximity to power instead of letting her brother have the company. Just horrible in the best, most compellingly dramatic way. It's an insane but entirely appropriate conclusion for the series. Genuinely, this has been a show for the ages. If you haven't seen Succession, you owe it to yourself to check it out. So, that was my ranking of all the 2023 TV shows I watched. This video ended up way longer than I expected. Clearly this format was a mistake. Maybe next year I'll just do a top 10 best TV shows or something, or still do all of them, but breeze through everything that isn't the top 10. I don't know. I'll figure it out. Watch Succession, watch Blue Eye Samurai, watch whatever else interests you. I don't know. I'm not your dad. Good night, Tri-State area.